In this advanced English lesson with the news, we're going to read a news article together so you can speak English in only 30 minutes. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Our headline: kids are asking AI companions to solve their problems. Here's why that's a problem. So here, notice we have that's, which of course is the contraction of that is. But what does that represent? Here's why kids asking AI companions to solve their problems. So all of this functions as that, which is why it's so important to replace it with a relative pronoun when you can. Here's why that's a problem. And notice here, if you wrote it out, you would just use the gerund, kids asking, because we don't want the verb conjugated. So here we have subject form where it is the subject, and then we have our verb conjugated with the subject. It's in the present continuous because it's taking place now. In this case, we just want kids doing something. So you want the gerund verb if you were to specify what that represents. Now, although you certainly would not replace that with all of these words, it's important to understand the grammar of it if you ever needed to specify it. Don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's learn about this issue. When two of James Johnson Burns' friends, so this is the name of the person, his last name is hyphenated because it's likely the last name of his mother and the last name of his father. That is sometimes done. That's why you'll see this last name hyphenated. And we have this possessive here because the friends belong to James, but they're just including his last name, which is why the possessive goes on the last name. When two of James Johnson Burns' friends got into an argument. So notice here the sentence structure. You get into an argument. Now, when you get into an argument, it means you start arguing with someone. So this is commonly done among friends, among spouses, among family members. You can say, oh, sorry, I'm in a bad mood. My husband and I got into a silly argument this morning over who forgot to take the garbage out or something. You might specify silly argument to mean it wasn't anything serious. So to get into an argument, my husband and I started arguing about something silly. So your preposition is into an argument, and then your verb is get, which you conjugate. So this is in the past simple. Now, in this case, they didn't specify the topic of the argument, which is completely fine. It's not required information. If you do, you would use the preposition about. So this is the topic of the argument. Who forgot to take out the garbage? You did. No, you did. I asked you. No, I asked you. So that's why I mentioned silly to mean it's not serious. So the friends got into an argument earlier this year. He didn't know what to do. So this kid, James, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to handle the situation, how to resolve the argument, because you can resolve an argument. You don't solve an argument because it suggests there's one correct solution. You can resolve it, which means you complete it with a positive outcome. So you can resolve an argument or you can handle the situation, which means you do something to make it more positive. There is no requirement to change the words listed here. This is perfectly fine. But one measure of your fluency is how easily you can replace words with something else and keep the same meaning, but say it in a different way. He didn't know what to do. So the 16-year-old turned to an AI companion for advice. Okay, so the 16-year-old is James. So you would say James is 16 years old. And in that case, years would have an S on it. That's how you say your age. 16 years old. But in this case, the 16-year-old, this functions as an adjective. So you don't add an S to year because adjectives don't have a plural form. Now, in this case, it's interesting because there is no noun. Generally, adjectives modify nouns. So we have the is a marker for a noun. Articles are not used with adjectives. Articles are used with nouns. So the 16-year-old, this is an adjective. What is this? A verb. So where's the noun? It's not there. Because it's obvious, it's implied. We don't need to say it because we understand it based on the context already given. So the 16-year-old boy would be the noun. The 16-year-old student would be the noun. 16-year-old kid would be the noun. But the noun is not there. So just keep that in mind if you're wondering, okay, we have an article, we have an adjective, we have a verb, where is the noun? The noun is not there, it's just implied. So the 16-year-old turned to an AI companion. So notice here, our phrasal verb is turn to. You turn to someone or something. So I could say, I turn to my mother for advice. This for represents to receive advice. So if you were to use a verb, you would say to receive. You would use the infinitive, to receive advice. But because we have a noun, you would use for, the preposition for plus noun. Advice is a noun. Advice. So when you turn to someone, my mother, or something, an AI companion, it means you use that person to solve a problem or help you handle a situation. So you go to that person for a specific purpose. If you have a problem, an issue, and you need help. Hopefully you would say, I always turn to Jennifer for advice. What type of advice? Relationship advice? Diet advice? No, for fluency advice, So always is our adverb of frequency. So that's why we have turn as the present simple. You could say, she always turns to Jennifer for fluency advice. So you would add that S, of course. So we'll keep it as I, because I want you to imagine this and put that's right, put that's right in the comments if you turn to me or my channel, because you can use a something. So you can say to Jennifer, or you could say to Jennifer's channel, because that's a something for fluency advice. So again, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. AI companions are digital characters who text and talk with users. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne. So here they're using the chatbot as an AI companion. They're using those two terms interchangeably. So when they say the chatbot, they also mean the AI companion. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne, remember this is our 16-year-old, told Johnson Byrne, who lives in Philadelphia. This information just tells you more about who this person is, and it's between commas, which means you can take it out grammatically and it doesn't impact the sentence. So you can read it without this information and it must be grammatically correct. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne to separate his friends. So you tell someone to do something. Sometimes I hear students change the word order of that. Even though tell is such a basic verb that you would learn in beginner English, I still hear mistakes. So you tell someone to do something. So the to do represents that you need the infinitive here, which we have, and the something is all of this. To separate his friends, that's the something, but to do represents the infinitive. He did so. So what does this mean? He did so. He separated his friends. So you might hear someone say, or I'll just say, I told you to subscribe to my channel and hopefully you did so. So I'm adding hopefully because I don't know. If I say, and you did so, it means you subscribed to my channel, but I actually don't know that to be factual. Because of that, I have to put a word to let the audience know I'm not stating this as fact. Otherwise, it's misleading. And hopefully you did so. Hopefully you subscribed to my channel. So said from your perspective, Jennifer told me to subscribe to her channel and I did so. So you're stating it as a fact. So hopefully you did so. Now you have a lot of examples of how to use this. So did represents, well, did so, these two words represents the action. Now just know you can absolutely only use did. Jennifer told me to subscribe to her channel and I did. And I did so. And I did so, just think of it as a phrase. It's more emphatic. It emphasizes the action a little more, but it's perfectly acceptable to just say, and I did. So if you don't feel comfortable using did so, because it's not always correct, it's correct in certain circumstances, you can simply say did. He did, even in this case, he did, because did always refers back to the last action mentioned. He did so, and it solved the immediate problem, he said. But now they don't talk much. So they, meaning his friends who were arguing, who got into an argument, to use that expression. But now they don't talk much. The experience showed him that AI companions can't find the deeper issue. He said, I'd be scared to ask them, so them represents the AI companions, or in this case, AI chatbots, the chatbots. I'd be scared to ask them a deep underlying question. Now, what does this apostrophe D represent? It could represent I had or I would, but only one is grammatically correct. I would is the only possible choice, although I'd also is a contraction for I had when it fits grammatically. I'd be scared because you use modal and then your base verb. I'd be scared because it's hypothetical. He hasn't done this yet. He hasn't asked them. So in this hypothetical situation, he would be scared if he asked them a deep underlying question. Let's look at these two adjectives. We have deep and then we have underlying. So here, deep, they used deeper, which is the comparative form. So a deep question, deep means more serious, more important, or more profound. And it goes below the surface. So going back to my example where my husband and I got into a silly argument, okay, about who forgot to take out the garbage. Now that's the surface level issue. He didn't take out the garbage. I'm mad at him. But maybe there's a deeper issue. He never does what I ask him. He doesn't listen to me. This has been going on for years and years. Just an example. But that would be the deeper issue. Okay. So there's the surface level issue. I'm mad at him because he didn't take out the garbage. And then there's the deeper issue. What is causing this tension or this conflict between us? So that's how deep is being used. Underlying, this one, it's more of a hidden concern. So you can think of it as what I said. I don't see them being too distinct. Deep just means more serious or more important. And then underlying means it's more the hidden one. It's not the obvious one. So again, the obvious one is he didn't take out the garbage. The hidden one is the fact that for years, I feel like he doesn't listen to me and I can't rely on him. So that's the underlying issue. In this case, they used question because he's talking about asking the AI companions a question. Let's keep going. Another thing that struck Johnson Byrne was how AI companions seemed to always agree with him. Okay, let's look at this. What form of the verb is this? Past simple. What's the base verb? Strike. So to strike someone, when something strikes someone, it means that information surprises that person or it gets their attention. It causes them to stop and think about something. So another thing that struck him. So another thing that got him to pay more attention or think about it or wasn't what he previously thought. Another thing that struck Johnson Byrne was how AI companions seem to always agree with him. So we have here to seem, to do something. Okay, so our verb is seem. In this case, is conjugated in the past simple. And then we have our infinitive, to agree with him. Now, if something seems to be, it means that it appears that way. You think it is that way, but you're not presenting it as fact. So there's some level of doubt there. So if I say, my students seem to enjoy my news lessons, I'm saying there's some proof in that. I get positive comments from students, but I'm not presenting it as a universal truth or as a fact. So how AI companions seemed to always agree with him and tell him what he wanted to hear. And he found the way they talk to be eerily similar to humans. So the way the AI companions, the chatbots talk to be eerily. So there are three sounds: eerily, eerily. And this is the adverb form because it modifies the verb. The adjective form is eerie. Ooh, that's eerie. So eerie means weird, spooky, creepy, unusual. So let's say I'm thinking about my friend. Okay, I'm thinking about my childhood friend I haven't seen in a really long time. And then I get ding, a notification. And I look at my phone and it's a text message from that friend that I have not talked to in years. And I was just thinking about her. And I don't normally think about this friend. I would say, whoa, that's eerie. That's spooky, creepy, weird. So that's eerily similar to humans, but in a creepy, spooky way because it's not a human, it's an AI. Let's keep reading. At one point when he was talking to an AI companion, I forgot it was actually not my friend, he said. So this shifts to first person voice because they put it in quotation. So he said these words, I forgot it wasn't actually my friend. But the rest of it is in reported speech. So this just makes more of an impact because these are the actual words he said. New research suggests other teens are having the same experience. So the same experience with what he just presented, how the AI chatbot solved his problem, didn't get to the underlying issue, seems to try to tell him what he wants to hear, things like that. So that's the same experience. Teens, this is the short form for what word? Teenagers. So teenagers, well, which we have right here, teenagers. So that's the short form is teens. Most people just use teens in spoken English, but you can absolutely use teenager as well. And that represents children between the ages of 13 to 19. Those are the only years that include the word teen: 13, 14, 19, 20. So 20, you're not a teenager because it doesn't end in teen. So new research suggests, this has the S on it because the subject is research, which is singular. New research suggests other teenagers are having the same experience. So in this case, the verb is to have an experience. Now, you can put the verb have in the progressive form, the present continuous, because it's not as possessing. So when you experience something, you can put it in the ing form. You can absolutely say have an experience. I had the weirdest experience today. It was really eerie. And then I can talk about how I was thinking about this childhood friend and then she texted me. So you can have an experience, but you can also just experience. So this would be the verb. In this case, it's being used as the noun because the verb is have. But you could also say new research suggests other teens are experiencing the same. So you could absolutely say that as well. And remember, I said it's always useful to know different ways of saying the same thing. That's a great marker of how fluent you truly are or how well you truly understand the English language when you can make these changes that I'm making. Let's keep reading. The majority of teenagers. So notice here we have the majority of, and then your noun in the plural. The majority of teenagers. And then they specify what that means because majority just means 51% or more. So there's a big difference between 52% and 92%. So here they're telling you what this means. You could equally just say 72% of teenagers. So if you use a percentage, you still need of, but you could say that 72% of teenagers have used AI companions. So this is in the plural form because the subject is they, is plural. They have used AI companions. According to the survey of over 1,000 13 to 17-year-olds. So here the S is on olds because this functions as a noun. Because if it were an adjective, you wouldn't have an S on it. So 13 to 17-year-olds conducted this year. Now, this isn't all teenagers because you would have to include 18 and 19 to represent all teenagers. Over half of teens, so here they're using the short form again, over half of teens, so more than 50% of teens use them, the chatbots, regularly, according to the research. And 1/3 turn to them for relationships and social interactions. So here we have this phrasal verb. What does it mean? When you turn to someone or something, it means you go to that person or that thing, because AI chatbots are not people, they're things, for support, help, advice for a specific purpose. Let's keep reading. What's more? So what's more, this is a transition phrase to introduce the sentence. So a more common way that you may know is moreover or additionally. What's more sounds a little more casual, to be honest. I don't hear it a lot in more academic sounding environments. Moreover is a formal sounding transition word when you want to add an additional point. So here they've added this information and they want to add more information. To add more, you can say moreover, or casually, you can say what's more. If you use moreover, just know it's spelled as one word. And then you have a comma here, and then this is the beginning of your sentence. So this doesn't affect the grammar of your sentence. You can remove it. This is the beginning of your sentence. So you need a subject, a verb, and an object. The subject is teens. More specifically, 31% of teens. Remember, if you use the percentage, you need of still, and then the plural. 31% of teens say their conversations with AI companions are as satisfying as or more satisfying than their conversations with other people. Okay, here. So as satisfying as. You need, this is your adjective, and then you need as before and after. And it means the same level. So you can say, this movie was as good as this movie. So we have better than, worse than, as good as, okay? As good as, as good as. And you can change good for whatever adjective you want, as long as their length was the same, 2 hours, 2 hours. As entertaining as terrible as. So it can be a negative thing. So you can use whatever adjective you want, in this case, satisfying, but don't forget that double as satisfying as adjective as. Now, when you use as adjective as, you go directly to the next point. So movie A was as good as movie B. So if you want to use more, so you could say better than or worse than, you have to use than. But the word than is not used with as adjective as, okay? So as satisfying as or more satisfying than their conversations with other people. And 33% have discussed. So here, notice again, they're using the short form because it's 33%. We don't know the noun, but yes, we do because they already said of teens. In English, native speakers, we don't repeat information if we don't have to. And in this case, there's no reason to say 33% of teens because it's known, it's obvious. 33% of teens, 33% have discussed, that's why it's plural, have discussed serious and important issues with AI companions instead of other humans. The findings shed new light on the relationships teens are developing with AI tools. So here, this is a useful phrase, to shed light on. You don't need new light. You can shed light on. Shed light on something. So something, the findings, the verb is shed. Shed light on something else. This is a great phrase to have, especially in a business or more professional situation, often used when you're talking about studies or findings, research, but can absolutely be in an everyday situation. So to shed light on something, it means to help explain or clarify something. Ultimately, it makes it easier to understand. So the findings make it easier to understand the relationship teens are developing with AI. Now, shed is an irregular verb. All three conjugations are shed. Shed, shed, shed. Now, if it were a singular here, you would have to add the S, of course, in the present simple. She sheds light on. She, because my example below is with a she. That's kind of difficult to say. She sheds light on. It's a little bit of a tongue twister there. So here's an example. Remember, my husband and I got into an argument over who took out the garbage or who forgot to take out the garbage in my hypothetical example, although we've probably argued about silly things like that. So here, the therapist shed light on, so this is the past simple, shed light on why we've been bickering about trivial things. Bickering is you did, meh, meh, meh. When you fight about things that are not important. Trivial also represents things that are not important. If you're not familiar with that adjective, trivial means it's not important. About trivial things. And then here's an example, like taking out the garbage. This is something trivial. It's not really important in the grand scheme of things. Now, she shed light on, so this is the past simple as well. She shed light on the deeper issue. Remember, the deeper underlying issue. So I'll add that as well. Underlying issue being our lack of communication or whatever I made up as our underlying issue. All right, so now you can use this one as well. And that's the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. Kids are asking AI companions to solve their problems. Here's why that's a problem. When two of James Johnson Burns' friends got into an argument earlier this year, he didn't know what to do. So the 16-year-old turned to an AI companion for advice. AI companions are digital characters who text and talk with users. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne, who lives in Philadelphia, to separate his friends. He did so, and it solved the immediate problem, he said, but now they don't talk much. The experience showed him that AI companions can't find the deeper issue, he said. I'd be scared to ask them a deep underlying question. Another thing that struck Johnson Byrne was how AI companions seemed to always agree with him and tell him what he wanted to hear. And he found the way they talked to be eerily similar to humans. At one point, when he was talking to an AI companion, I forgot it was actually not my friend, he said. New research suggests other teens are having the same experience. The majority of teenagers, 72%, have used AI companions, according to the survey of over 1,000 13 to 17-year-olds conducted this year. Over half of teens use them regularly, according to the research, and 1/3 turn to them for relationships and social interactions. What's more, 31% of teens say their conversations with AI companions are as satisfying as or more satisfying than their conversations with other people. And 33% have discussed serious and important issues with AI companions instead of other humans. The findings shed new light on the relationships teens are developing with AI tools. Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.